Just digging in a little bit more to this command, love one another. Now, we use the word command, and if you've taken some basic English classes, you realize there are different kinds of sentences. There's questions and exclamatory sentences, but one of those is a command, and it's a command to do something. Well, God gives us lots of commands. In fact, one of the most famous parts of Christianity, and really the Judaism as well, is the Ten Commandments, right? The Ten Commandments. You've probably heard of those. Even non-Christians know about those because they've made the news a lot. Statues and posters of the Ten Commandments and stuff are up all over the place. So real quick, pop quiz, all right? I just want to see collectively how many of the commandments, of the 10 commandments, we can name. There's a lot more than 10, but the 10 are the most famous. So raise your hand if you think you remember one of them, and we'll shout it out real loud. You shall not kill. That's right, don't murder.
Do not commit adultery.
Do not commit adultery. You shall not steal. Was that what you were going to say too? Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. Nice job. Honor your father and mother. Respect your parents. Way in the back. Yes, God should be first. God is number one. That's right. Don't bear false witness against your neighbor. And sometimes we just simply translate it into don't lie. So even a little more than that. It's about honoring your neighbor, actually. Even more than that. Yeah. Yes, don't use God's name in vain. Yes, do not have any other gods before me or any idols. Were you going to say one? Yes, good job. Don't covet other people's things. Yeah, I was wondering if we'd remember that one. Way to go. Yeah, oh, you're jumping way ahead, man. You're stealing my whole sermon here. Man, no, okay, we're done right there. No, I'm just kidding. You guys did awesome. Hey, adults, give them a round of applause. You just realized that the adults in the room went, they are listening. We can keep doing what we're doing, right? No, that's great. I'm impressed. So real quick review. I'm going to have Kristen just click through the Ten Commandments just as a refresher. You shall have no other gods, and in some ways that gets organized also includes don't make any idols. Do not misuse the name of the Lord your God or take it in vain. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. Honor your father and mother. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not give false witness or testimony against your neighbor. Do not covet your neighbor's house or belongings. Do not covet your neighbor's other stuff, relationships or anything. So the Ten Commandments actually get translated. Some of you are like, oh, I didn't remember that was 2, and I thought they get arranged differently, but they're all there. They're all the same things. And those 10 Commandments were a really, really big deal. In fact, they were kind of the epitome of the law, okay? And if you're ever reading the Bible and you hear the law, because it's all over there, usually what it's referring to are the 10 Commandments, along with all the other commandments that God gave the Israelites about how to live. You see, the Israelites were slaves in Egypt, and God rescued them. That's the whole Moses, let my people go. And then he parts the Red Sea, and Charlton Heston comes up on the other side. And then the waves sweep over the Pharaoh's army. Yeah, and then they get to the other side, and they're free. And they're like, now what? We don't even know how to live. We've been slaves for 400 years. How do we even live as people? As God's people. And so God gives them the 10 Commandments and a bunch of other commands about how to live, how to worship, how to act toward one another, and how to act toward neighbors, right? And in fact, these 10 Commandments are often lumped into 2 big groups, okay? And the first one refers to how we relate to God, right? Worship and serve only God, don't use His name in vain, honor the Sabbath day. And the others relate to how we treat each other, right? Don't kill, don't steal, don't covet. It's about our relationships with each other. Well, in the New Testament, we hear a story, And it's interesting that the religious leaders of the day are often coming to Jesus with questions. But most of the time, they're not questions that they're actually trying to learn from Jesus. A lot of times, they're trying to trick Jesus. They're trying to get him to say an answer that they can argue with and disagree with and find some sort of flaw or fault in Jesus. So they're trying to trap him with these questions. And on one occasion, the teachers of the law come to Jesus. And I just imagine, and they probably didn't look like this, they probably didn't make these noises, but I imagine it's something like, we're going to get him now. We got a really good one, all right? Hey, Jesus, of all the commandments, which one is the greatest? We got him now. Because if he says any of them, we can argue and say that the other ones are more important. This will be perfect. And then Jesus looks at them and he says, the greatest command is... Does anyone know the answer? Yeah. Ooh, that's the second one. Yeah, but he follows it up. And I'm going to get to that. Oh, that's kind of like that one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. That's what he said is the greatest commandment. And I imagine those teachers of the law going, oh, I didn't think of that one. He didn't even pick one of the 10. Now what are we going to do? And in fact, in the Bible, it even says that after that, they stopped asking him questions. It's like, okay, we've been burned 10 times, so we're done with this, all right? He's good. And even one of them says, you answered correctly. He acknowledges that is a good answer. So Jesus doesn't even pick one of the 10 commandments. He said the greatest command is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. And then the second commandment is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. And he says all of the laws and the prophets are summed up in these two commands. Woo! How many of you have heard of Cliff's Notes? Not yet, really much. Okay? Cliff's Notes are famous because they take a big story, like a novel that you might have to read in school, and they boil it down and summarize things, all right? They're not meant to be read instead of the novel, but if you're reading the novel, you can read the Cliff's Notes and go, oh, that's what it was about, or that's what that was saying. It really helps. That's kind of what Jesus does here. He said, you want the Cliff's Notes version of all the laws and all the prophets? Love God, love your neighbor. That's what it's all about. This living life out doesn't have to be so complicated. Love God, love your neighbor. And you notice that he didn't say, forget all the laws, forget everything the prophets said, just do this. He didn't say that. He said, all of those laws can be summarized in these two. He was fulfilling the law, upholding the law. So all those commands that God gave, he's saying are important. But when we live it out, we can think of it in these two simple phrases. Love God, love your neighbor. And that really is the heartbeat of how God wants us to live in this world. So when we talk about love one another, Jesus says, a new command I give you. Here's a secret. It really wasn't that new, okay? It was all the way back in Deuteronomy, at the beginning of that time when God gave the laws. He said, love God. That's where he was quoting from. And love your neighbor as yourself in those old books. So when we go to small group today, we're going to challenge you with some questions about what it actually looks like to love one another. Is it just this mushy-gushy feeling stuff that Han Solo thought it was at first? Or does it actually mean something else? It is, it might be, it is a feeling in some ways, but it's also about compelling us to do things. And so you're going to dig into that. And I want you to really think, man, what does this look like in my life, in our lives? How do I see this being played out at school, in my family, at home? And be willing to share some examples, some thoughts, or some questions in your small group time.